What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Hanging out today, James Badge Dale, actor extraordinaire.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
You got it?
Yeah, good.
Not a problem. So, before we talk about the movie, by the way, loved it. Checked it out yesterday.
Thank you.
Super intense.
Thank you.
Plenty to talk about there, but
good.
Let's talk about your life. We're here in New York City.
Nobody wants to know about my life.
You want to know
man.
about your life, Badge? Come on.
I try to figure that out every day. Man. What's up, man?
But take me back all the way to the beginning. What do you remember about growing up here in New York City as a little kid?
Oh, wow, that's an excellent question. You know, the great thing about New York City is I was born here, 20th between 9th and 10th. The sounds and the smells and the sights never really change.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have family members who are not from New York City, and they cannot handle it here. But something about New York City just, it's comforting to me. When I hear the sirens, when I hear the subway, you know, even the difference in the smells of the seasons, from, you know, the spring rain to the intense heat in the summer, it's just home.
So you had all the seasons, and then you dipped over to the West Coast and lived in LA.
Yeah, I went to high school in Los Angeles. I think I was schooled there predominantly. You know, it's funny because in Los Angeles, they were like, you're way too New York to be LA. And then I moved back to New York in '99. Everyone's like, what school did you go to? You go to PS, whatever. And I'd be like, nah. No, I went to school I went to high school in Los Angeles. And they're like, no, you're not New York.
That's interesting because you're kind of caught in the middle there.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess that's the way it's supposed to be, because such is life. I mean, yeah. You know, I make a living as an actor, and we're constantly on the road, and you're constantly trying to adapt to new circumstances and situations and people. And you know, maybe it's all right to not be from anywhere.
Yeah,
you know,
you're just always on the move.
You can't catch me, man.
Well, people had a tough time catching you on the ice back in the day as a hockey player.
Yeah, I was a goaltender though. Okay. But I was really fast. I was
so
a
they were
fast
just keeping
goalie.
you in the net because you had quick hands, or what?
Well, no, that was the problem. I had quick feet. I had I have a really bad glove hand. So like
probably an issue as a goaltender.
Yeah, it's a big issue. and I would always look good for like a month or two before people would be like, wait a minute, you just go glove hand high. And all my friends make fun of me for it. Like all my guys that I still play with, we're about to play an alumni game in a few weeks. Nice. And yeah, they always make fun of my glove hand.
So who were your idols growing up in terms of hockey?
In the goaltending world, I was a big fan of Kelly Rudy.
Okay.
If you remember Kelly Rudy, he was on the New York Islanders, and then he got traded to Los Angeles Kings, and he would always wear that blue bandana, and I was 10 years old, and I thought he was so cool. and I remember I went out on the ice one day, and I told my mom, I was like, I'm gonna wear a blue bandana. And I put a blue bandana on under my helmet, and I went out there, and that thing went down in front of me. I couldn't see a thing. Couldn't see a thing. I was like, so that was over. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the sport.
Yeah, no doubt.
It taught me a lot.
Definitely. So when you think about your time in Manhattanville, obviously a lot of packed in there, hockey, theater, what sticks out to you the most?
The transition from hockey to theater. You know, I went to Manhattanville to play hockey, and I started studying theater because I kind of wanted just an easy grade, because I was going to play pro hockey.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, it didn't work out too well. You know, I got hurt, and then also I wasn't playing well.
Right.
And so all my energy went into the theater department. And if you look at, there's some similarities between hockey and theater, and the live performance aspect, but also what I would call the ensemble. The hockey's a true team sport. You know, you live and die by the team.
Right.
It's not an individual effort.
No.
You know, very rarely in hockey. I mean, maybe Mark Messier in the '94 Stanley Cup series, you know, like that game sticks out. But theater's the same way. You live and die by the group and by the ensemble, and I find the same thing in film also. I mean, if you take a really good look at film, the actor is just one little cog in this giant machine, and so you tend to learn to really care about what everyone else is doing also, and that goes from, you know, the director to the writer to the, you know, the DP, but then also, you know, the electric lighting guys, the gaffers. You know, I mean, everyone matters, and we all come together to make something.
That's a great point, because when a lot of people think about acting, they think about the individual, but there is a whole family that goes into a production. So when did you start to realize in your career that it's not just about you, it's about your fellow actors and everybody else involved?
Great question. I have to give Kiefer Sutherland and David Morse, two guys I worked with when I was in my early 20s, and they kind of, watching them work, watching how they treated the crew and how they treated the overall, and how it was a family to them. And you know, I always kind of, I was never working with actors my own age. I just, when I came up, I got lucky. I was just always working with kind of some older school actors who kind of took me, and they're like, "Come here, kid. I'm gonna show you the way it's done." You know.
Well, Kiefer's obviously a great guy to learn from.
Yeah, he's a good guy, fun guy, and he's an incredibly well-prepared, talented actor. Yeah.
So when you think about 24 now, I mean, for a lot of people, 24 is still high on their list of best shows ever.
Yeah,
you know, what do you remember the most about that experience all these years later?
I was so young.
How old were you? Early 20s, right?
Yeah, I was 24, 25 years old. I had just done my first equity play in New York and went straight to Los Angeles to do that. Man, what did I remember from that, man? It was, we had a really good time. It was a good crew, and it was season 3. Yeah. And, you know, we were all very close, and I remember it was the first time I was ever working with firearms, and so I dropped my firearm a lot. Maybe on camera.
It's like, hey, can we run that one more time?
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking, you know, because here you are, you're playing. You know, there's, in the world of 24, these special agents are a little bit, you know, they're kind of modern-day superheroes.
Right, and you have to look the part.
You got to look the part, and I'm like, what am I, man? I'm a theater nerd who played hockey in New York, and what do I know about this? But yeah, it's a real fond memory.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you go from that as an early 20-year-old to where you're at now, Standoff at Sparrow Creek. I mean, looks like you're pretty skilled in terms of guns and everything else now.
I've learned a lot in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I've been around a lot of gunfire, for better or for worse. Yeah.
So let's talk about the new movie. It comes out today, and I watched it last night. Really enjoyed it. Super intense.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Must have been really interesting to make also, because we were talking off camera. Couple different warehouses, a bunch of guys who've been in a bunch of different movies. So what was the coolest part about that experience?
Oh man, this was, I love this movie. I'm so happy you got to watch it, and you know, I think it's a different film. Yeah. People aren't making movies like this anymore.
No, absolutely not.
You know, our director, Henry Dunham, it was really this kind of throwback to the noir films of, you know, the 50s and 60s, and you know, a little bit of 70s influence in there, and you know, the movie's about there's an anti-government militia. There's been a shooting at a police funeral, and the police are saying, we believe this was a militia member. So these guys run together, and they're like, what has happened? They're trying to piece together what's happening. It's all happening in real time, and they realize they're missing an automatic weapon. And it matches the description of what the police said, and it's someone in the room. And so that's where the movie starts, and what they're trying to do is figure out who did it so they can turn them into the police before the police come and just take them all out.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and you know, your character is great in there, and just in terms of running the show, and also just kind of figuring out what is true and what is not, and then also looking at people that you may see in your everyday life, but they happen to have this totally separate life as militiamen just going on in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find fascinating.
We play with these ideas of tribalism. Yeah. And also the idea of loner versus group. You know, what is isolation? What is being part of something? And I think all those themes run through the film, and people will be very surprised as the layers are pulled back on each of these characters.
Definitely, and it seems like also you guys played really nicely with the lighting too, like very dark scenes. You know, it's kind of like next level, but I mean, just the shadows of the faces, like it was all just beautifully shot. Yeah,
that's our DP is this guy Jackson Hunt, and Henry Dunham, our director, like I said, he's very visual, and so he came in and he knew exactly what he wanted, shot by shot by shot by shot, and this kind of visual aspect. You know, it's funny. Okay, so Brian Garrity and I are close friends, and on the third day, we're kind of like, what's going on? Because, you know, Henry would be like, no, don't move. No, just stand. You got to stand right there and do the dialogue. And you'd be like, well, no, I kind of feel like moving over here, and I'm all actory. I want to maybe pick up a cup of coffee and do that. And like, no, just stand right there. And we would run back to the monitor and we look at it and we'd be like, oh, he's right. If you move, you ruin that frame. Every frame was so meticulously set up that you had to be here at this moment. And then this has to work at this moment over here when you move to there. So, you know, it became apparent to us, like, the method of what we were doing. And then you got Jackson Hunt walking around with, like, one light. Like literally, it's just it's like a construction stand-up light. And so when we got to move setups, it would take 5 minutes, and then we get the cameras back rolling, and then we just push through.
It's really interesting because in some scenes there's not much being said, but there's so much being said in terms of the subtext of the scene. So whether it's a director or an actor, you know, just unpacking that moment by moment must have been a really interesting challenge for you. And you know, how is that different from some of the other roles that you have played in the past?
That's a good question. You know, this film. God, there's so much dialogue in this film, man. I'll be straight with you, man. Like I was just struggling to learn the words. You know?
Yeah, there was a lot packed in there.
Yeah, there's a lot packed in there, man. I was going home every night after work, and we were working late. And there was a few restaurants in the neighborhood where I rented a house. They knew me, and I would call into the kitchen, and they would put in like a last order for me, keep it warm. And while they were closing down the restaurant and the bar, they would let me come in and sit in the back and sit for 2 hours and eat and learn dialogue for the next day. You know, I love this movie. I love doing independent film, and you know, all 7 of these actors and the crew, like everyone's there because they believe in the story. You know, everyone's there because they believe in independent film and making something that's a little risky and a little offbeat.
Right.
And you know, that's our movie.
And you mentioned it before, this is a movie that may not necessarily be made in the same way like it once was, you know? So when you think about the movie industry, I love asking this question when people come in, how has the industry changed just in terms of movies that are being made and just the timing of everything?
Right. You know, studios don't make movies like this anymore, you know? But what I do love is like, okay, yes, the studio film industry is changing a lot and gravitating obviously a lot more towards, you know, massive tentpole and event films.
Sure.
The independent film industry is very strong and alive right now, and people are making really interesting, risk-taking films on this other end without the corporate influence, and I love that. I love that, man. I can do that all day long, man.
Yeah, I'm sure it's freeing because you've done the big pictures. You know, you've done the Iron Man 3s of the world. But this is just down and dirty, true acting, gritty type of film, and it must be great for you as an actor.
Down and dirty, and you got to work fast.
Right.
You know, on Iron Man, you get 4 months.
You have the luxury of time.
You got the luxury of time,
you got
the budget, craft services is great. They're CGIing everything. You got Downey running around, and he's like the coolest dude ever, you know. And then here we are, we're doing this movie, and it was 3 6-day work weeks. So you're just it's a meat grinder,
right?
You know, and you just churn it out, and you know, Henry's a first-time director, and it's always interesting to watch first-time directors because as much as they can try to prepare for this experience, until you've been through the experience, you don't really know what it's like, you know, and how it affects you physically.
Right.
And I've seen directors stumble physically because it is long hours and it can be grinding. And I watched Henry get stronger every day, and that's the sign of a powerful, strong individual, man. Because you got to get to the end. You can't burn out in the beginning. And this experience on this film, I would say our last week was by far our strongest week of shooting, and we all kind of came together to finish the movie.
Very cool. So Henry, first-time director, physically getting through it. How does he compare to somebody like Scorsese, who's been through everything, and you know?
Right, Scorsese's been through everything, man. But you know, there's an attention to specificity, which matters, and when I worked with Scorsese, that's what I saw, and that was the first time I'd really seen how every little piece matters. And we will go back and do this again and again and again. And you know what, if the lighting's not right, we got to tear it down and take 3 hours to get it back, to get it right. It all matters. It all matters. And I also learned to play more when I worked with Scorsese, you know, that it doesn't have to be exactly like it is on the page. You know, that you can come in and you have to bring something to the role.
Right.
You know?
So that last scene where you take down DiCaprio in the elevator, how many times did you guys shoot that?
We shot that over 2 days.
Wow.
That was a 2-day shoot, and that was wild because you know, it was me, Leo, Matt, Anthony Anderson, and Marty says, guys, come here, and he's playing a Kurosawa film. I can't remember exactly which one it was. That whole movie was a blur to me. I was so nervous to be there the entire time. Like, why am I here? And he's like, guys, watch this. it's this fight between these two samurai, and he was like, do you feel the rhythm? He's like, I see the scene like a metronome. It goes tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, and then bam, and then bam. And so it just kind of set up this pace. And then we went in and we took our time, and we got it. We had to get that right, because that's
I think you got it right.
Important part of the movie.
I'd definitely say so.
Yeah.
What do you remember about your audition for that film? I mean, you mentioned being nervous, but just being in that room, and just, did you realize the magnitude of the film when you first got introduced to it?
You know, some things probably better to happen to you when you're young, because you don't realize things.
Right, you don't think about it as much.
No, I remember being nervous, and I remember coming in and going through the audition process, and it didn't really hit me until the first day. When I was like, why am I here?
You looked around the set.
Wait, yeah, who's sticking out here? You know, if you look at that call sheet, you're like, one name doesn't fit the others, man.
I mean, that's an all-timer right there.
It was an all-timer, and I was so happy to be there, and you know, to be honest with you, I learned a lot on that set, and I think I approached it the wrong way. And
how did you approach it?
I was acting too hard. You know, you get nervous, and you're like, no, I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous. And Matt said to me one day, he goes, are you nervous? I was like, no, I'm not nervous, I'm fine. And he goes, I'm nervous. And I was like, what do you mean you're nervous? He goes, yeah, I'm always nervous. You know, and he's the type of guy who will be like, cameras, they'll start rolling, and he'll just look at you and go, I have no idea what I'm about to do.
Wow.
And action, and then he'll go try something, and it changed me as an actor working with those guys. It changed me, and so I'm just, I was grateful and humbled for that experience, you know?
No question about it. Do you find yourself taking young actors aside now that you've been in the game for a while?
Yeah, I try to, like I said, I worked with a lot of older actors who kind of took me as the little brother, and so I try to be there for people, you know? I try to be there for other actors, and it's not an easy profession, it's not an easy lifestyle, and there's a lot of things to navigate, you know? But I mean, anytime I can take a young actor aside and be like, yo, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing.
You're like, I've heard this one before.
Yeah, and then laugh about it. You know, it's interesting to watch other people relax when you be honest with them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So when you think about your career, you've done a lot of different parts. I know you got Hightown coming out a little bit later on.
Yeah.
It seems like a really deep and interesting topic in terms of the opioid crisis. So, you know, what can you tell us about that right now?
Yeah, I think it's actually really timely. So this show will be about the opioid crisis and the drug trade. Actually taking place on Cape Cod.
Interesting.
So it's a very volatile, interesting kind of group of people coming together that and just kind of makes a little spark. How do I say that? A little explosion. And working with great people, Monica Raymond and Riley Vocal, and you know, hopefully we can do something really different and strange. And
definitely.
And Bruckheimer's producing it.
Oh wow!
So he's an old hockey buddy.
There you go.
Yeah.
It all ties in.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily think Cape Cod when you think of the opioid crisis, but it just goes to show that this crisis has touched all parts of this country and well beyond this country as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do for a living. You know what I mean? I think in Cape Cod, you know, you have this confluence of kind of a party scene and then the blue collar fisherman scene, and it's in both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And different people using different things for different reasons. But it's timely, and it's a world that is. I think there's a lot we can do with it.
Definitely.
And, yeah.
So you've had some great experiences in your career, but you went back to your college, gave the commencement speech.
Oh, I did.
A couple years back.
I did. I'm technically a college graduate now.
You were technically a college graduate.
I just got a diploma.
So what was your wisdom that you imparted to those fellow Manhattan
I felt so bad for them. I was like, oh man, I called the school. I was like, you guys know I never graduated.
Did they know?
And they're like, yeah, we know. And I'm like, okay. But also I'm an actor. Like, I travel around in a pickup truck with a pit bull, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I really have to say. And they were like, no, we want you to do this. And so it was a great experience for me. I was so happy to be there, and I took a long time to write something that I thought that I did have something to talk about, that I could relate to them. And you know, hopefully, you know, one person in that audience went, wait a minute, okay, you know, I hear you. I think it was, I tried to make the speech about fear. And what is fear? And you know, it goes back to what we were talking about with The Departed. You know, what is nerves?
Right.
You know,
and that fuels your experience.
That's part of the human.
Or it can cripple you also.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's always interesting to me, man, that the actor who's like trying to go, I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous.
And you're holding on so tightly.
You're too tight, man.
You gotta let go.
Let it go, man.
Yeah.
You know, guess what, man? We're all human beings. And that's part of what we do, you know? And you take the, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Acting, it's not a daily art. Sometimes I'm terrible. Sometimes I have days and takes and performances where you're like, wow, that was really bad.
That's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and try it again.
Right. You just gotta be honest with yourself.
Yep, that's it, man.
But you let it all out there in the standoff on Sparrow Creek.
Right on. So much fun, man. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Sit down.